several Australians who've been bringing strong hydroponic marijuana into Bali. Now, wouldn't you think a statement like that would draw some interest from the Australian Federal Police? I mean,
or at least the Australian media, that they would have investigated this story.
Something. I mean, these statements come straight out of nowhere. They hit the media, and in any normal context, that would lead to something, an investigation. It would be followed up. But no, these just go straight into the public domain, and people then repeat them as gossip. And it's like, oh yeah, my friend knows someone who does something. And it's always like, yeah, a friend of mine told me they know someone. But no, they don't. They don't know anyone. Someone read this article and then told it to a friend. And then that person told it to one of their friends. And then it gets back to you as, a friend of mine knows someone. Nobody knows anyone, okay? It all starts from these things that are seeded in the mainstream news. And this is what makes me so angry, Sean. This is why I'm doing Truth News. This is why Josh and I are absolutely committed to following this case all the way through, and to basically bringing our media back into some form of semblance of sanity and honesty and basic values. Because at the moment they're just betraying our whole civilization. They're selling us down the toilet with what they're doing, and we need to stop it.
There's some amazing journalists. I mean, I talk with amazing journalists all the time, you know, and they just don't do their job anymore. I just don't know why. I don't understand why. Because journalists go to journalism school because they've got a passion for stories, for they all want to be the next Seymour Hersh, and they just for some reason they just don't get through the nets anymore. Maybe it's funding or whatever. I don't get it, because this story is so full of holes.
And also, this story is a fantastic opportunity for a proper investigative journalist to break an amazing story. And, you know, it's up to us to do it, because we don't...
There hasn't been one ounce of marijuana found from Australia and Indonesia. You know, there hasn't been one drug bust since, or before, so it's never happened. And yet, you know, this fantastic reporter, Matthew Moore, was able to find all these people that had smoked it. You know, and it just so happens that it comes out the day before Schapelle's conviction.
Absolutely. Look,
what an absolute. You know, it's that to me is someone that has no heart, no compassion for liberty, for truth and justice. For someone to write such an article and know that there's a human being on the line, and you know, someone that needs all the help they can, to write such filth, such conjecture and propaganda.
Absolute outright lies. Yeah.
Yeah. It really is so sad.
But, you know, it's just been ongoing, and it just becomes truth after a while. People, for instance, you know, the current affair story about Schapelle and Mercedes having dinner. People believe that Schapelle goes out when she feels like it. Well, do you think they really would go out to dinner? And if that woman, Elizabeth Short, really thought that that was Mercedes and Schapelle, wouldn't she have waited for them to stand up so she could get a proper photo of them?
Let me just elaborate on that story for our listeners, because I've done some investigation into that. Now, a current affair ran this lurid story, the top headline story of the evening, saying that Schapelle and Mercedes had been caught having dinner in a restaurant, and they had photographs, and they had a tourist who'd basically supposedly just come across Schapelle and recognized her, even though she's wearing dark glasses, in some, you know, dark place, right? And you see these photographs, and you see someone sitting there with dark glasses on, who side on, only a profile view, right? And you can't tell anything from looking at it. It's on television. There's absolutely no way that the viewer can make any decision about it. But the extraordinary thing behind the story, because I've spoken to Roy, who was in the room when the interview was done, because the current affair apparently approached Ros Lee, saying that Channel 7, basically painting Channel 7 as the evil ones, and that they were saying, look, Channel 7's going to do this terrible story about about Schapelle and Mercedes, but we're going to do a counter story, and we just want to ask you a few questions. Now, that was all a complete lie. Channel 7 wasn't doing a counter story. Channel 7 wasn't doing a story. It wasn't a counter story. Channel 9 was the one who was doing the hit piece story, and they basically ambushed them.
Out that she knew that it wasn't Mercedes and Schapelle in the story.
Yes, I heard that from Roy, that he said that they said they knew the photos were faked. They knew the photos were not real, or they weren't of Schapelle, but then they filmed it with a camera crew in there, and now look at these photos. And I think what they're getting a benefit from their purpose, from their objective, is that Rosalie has that, sort of working class, accent and everything. And I think, when she reacted and said, that's not, she got angry.
Well,
and I think they wanted to capture that.
I've been with Rosalie on quite a few occasions when there's been interviews.
Yeah.
And she will be polite and, for 99% of the interview.
Okay.
But then I'll ask her, say, for instance, at the end of the interview, after everything's happened, and then they'll go, so is it really Mercedes and Schapelle? And then she'll just go, what are you talking about?
Okay.
Just for the last half an hour, talked about how it isn't and how stupid it is, and they ask this question, of course it fires her up, and
that's amazing.
That's the piece they use.
That is such an old trick. You spend an hour interviewing someone, and you wait for that one point where they look uncomfortable, and you basically provoke them a little bit, and then you just discard the rest of it. You discard everything except that 30-second segment.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a trick that they used on Hidden Truth when they were interviewing James and interviewing Katrina and so forth, because what they do is they ask them a question, and then they answer the question, and then they hold the camera on them. And they hold the camera on them for about another 3 seconds. Well, when people are nervous in front of cameras to start with, and the camera is still rolling, they start to their eyes start to move. So all of a sudden people go, oh, they're guilty. Look at that. It's just a trick that anyone can use.
But look, what's even more shocking is what they did with the Vox Pops, when they walked around supposedly somewhere out in Sydney. I don't know where they were going. And they were basically showing people these photographs, some random person on the street, and saying, "Who do you think that is?" I mean, I found that incredible. And the average person is going, "Oh yeah, that's Schapelle Corby. Oh yeah, I'd recognise that any day."
Well, it's an Asian setting. There's a brunette and a blonde, and they're asking them. Now, if they said, "Oh, I don't know who it is," well, are they going to get on telly? No. So if they go, "Oh, that's Schapelle and Mercedes," and they get on telly. It's like someone walking up to you and saying, "Here, taste this cola," and there's a film crew there. Do you think you like it? Well, you're not going to go, "Yuck, I hate it." If you want to get on telly, you're going to say, "Yeah, it's great." I
mean, it's so ridiculous what they did. It's so deliberately manipulative. It has everything to do with propaganda. It's really propaganda. It's extreme hardcore propaganda.
The thing is, I can't say that there's a grand big conspiracy with the governments and channels and this and that to do. It comes down to basic psychology of ratings. And when 95% of the population love and think Schapelle's innocent, what do you think rates?
Well, actually,
what
Josh,
rates is when you say something opposite and you come out with something like, "Yeah, you're all wrong."
I think you're partially right, Josh, but in this case, I do believe there's a grand conspiracy. We're going to get onto that when we get onto the ABC, because you can understand all this business about ratings, and I can understand.
Well, the ABC is a lot more in bed with the government than some of these networks, some of these private networks. But not to say that the private networks aren't also corruptible, but
the ratings is important too. But they benefit from the ratings either way. You see, they benefited from the ratings when it was all pro Schapelle. Then they benefited when it was all against Schapelle. I mean, they can spin it any way they like. When you can completely control the media, when a consortium of the most rich and powerful people on the planet control all the media, they can spin it any way they like. They win. It's a win-win situation for them. All they've got to do is dramatize it and get the people all worked up over anything. So, but the question about the conspiracy, well, I'm afraid it's there, and we're going to get to that with the ABC. But I just want to, before we get into that, we're going to have a little break for some music. I'm going to play the Tara Hack song, which we didn't play last time. But Sean, can you just talk a little bit about Schapelle's state of mind right at the moment? Because I've heard some pretty disturbing things, and it was pretty recent. It was only about a month ago. They were saying that she's very depressed, and potentially suicidal. So can you just fill us in on whatever you can?